1912, and this is Englishman Bobby Leach about to get inside a metal barrel and yeet himself off Niagara Falls because that was apparently something people did back then. Essentially, this was the equivalent of those TikToks these days that tell you it's a good idea to drink bleach. Miraculously, he survived, albeit with a new jigsaw puzzle in the form of his kneecaps, becoming only the second person in history to have achieved such a feat. Leach was a daredevil, and yet, 14 years later, whilst walking down the street in 1926, he slipped on an orange peel and died after his broken leg got gangrene. What's the point in that story? Well, it tells the tale about someone overcoming great adversity and coming out of it looking like a hero, only to slip on something stupid at the height of his powers and throw it all away. And that's not too dissimilar to what's happening with Liam Lawson at the moment. When the Kiwi was drafted into AlphaTauri and VCarb over the course of 2023 and 2024, he took the F1 world by storm, adapting quickly to the car in tricky circumstances and flipping off Sergio Perez, which is something that we all wish we could do at that stage. I mean, little did we know how good we had it. Fast forward to 2025, and the unthinkable has happened. An FP1 video has aged well for starters, and Lawson has drowned in that Red Bull to the point where search teams aren't even bothered to go and look for the body. To put this into terms the Kiwi might understand, this is a bit like that scene in Cars 3, where Lightning McQueen pushes the limits too far and wrecks hard. Only in this cut of the movie, he can't be saved and is sent off to the scrap heap where he's recycled into a new fleet of shopping trolleys. Now, rumours are swirling that after only 2 races at the big team, Lawson could already be moved aside, and as predicted in my last video on the subject as well, he might not even have a landing spot at Racing Bulls, though who could take up that drive has also rocked the paddock. So, let's get into it. If you want the full ins and outs of Australia, you can go and watch this video, but the short version, Lawson was shit. P18 in qualifying after spending half the lap in the Australian outback and generally lapping around 7 tenths away from teammate Verstappen wasn't really a great start, not made much better when he crashed out in the wet in the latter half of the race. There were some positives to take from this though, Lawson setting the second fastest lap of the Grand Prix, a stat that you all in the comments were very eager to make me aware of. Maybe that was a sign of positive things to come. I mean, turned out it wasn't, but in fairness to Lawson, he had little to no experience around the Albert Park layout, lost time due to issues in practice, which only added to the reliability woes that curtailed his running in testing before that. It was little surprise then that China wouldn't have been much better. Lawson had at least raced here before, albeit 7 years ago, in very different machinery. We were also dealing with a sprint weekend, meaning just a single practice session before setups had to be locked in for qualifying. Not the ideal situation given Lawson's current method of configuring his car involves throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. On the bright side, the circuit had been resurfaced for 2025, giving it some new characteristics that all the drivers would need to adapt to. Did this help level the playing field? Well, not that much. Lawson's FP1 time of a 1:33.6 was only 4 tenths back from teammate Max Verstappen, though if you look a little deeper, the Dutchman was on the slower tyre and Lawson was still 18th at the end of the day. That didn't set expectations particularly high heading into sprint qualifying. In fact, to quote the famous phrase, our expectations were low, but holy f***. P20 for the sprint, meaning Lawson spent Saturday morning playing with fellow likely mid-season dropout Jack Doohan, and with such little preparation, things didn't improve in Grand Prix qualifying either. Another P20, forcing Red Bull to take him out of Parc Ferme again in order to adjust the setup of the Kiwi's RB21, and just like Australia, convert Sunday's main race into a glorified test outing. Now Wikipedia will tell you that Lawson ended Sunday 12th, a big improvement compared to, well, in the wall, but that obviously doesn't tell the whole story. The Kiwi actually crossed the line 16th, over a race distance that somehow looked more painful than the sprint, only benefiting from a penalty for Doohan, Gasly being disqualified, and Ferrari being Ferrari, aka f***ing useless. For a team that even had Sergio Perez scoring regular podiums this time last year, that's not a great look, and when the driver you hired to be an improvement comes out of his first 3 qualifying sessions with a worse record than Dr. Eggman over here, the writing may just be on the wall. Lawson was honest in the media pen post-race, admitting that Helmut Marko's shotgun was already pressed against his chin and he didn't have long if he wanted to remain at the Red Bull outfit. In fact, while all this was going on, rumours were already circulating that Liam was set to be replaced by one of the RB drivers as early as the next round in Japan, Yuki Tsunoda being the leading candidate. And by rumours, we're not just talking about Planet F1 over here. No, this came straight from Ralf Schumacher, who's pretty reliable with these things as long as it's not about his nephew. If you think this feels particularly harsh, well, that's because it is, given on the face of it, Liam's time in the car has consisted of a disrupted pre-season test, a monsoon at a track he'd never raced at before, and a sprint weekend around a circuit he's not driven at in 7 years. Suzuka, meanwhile, is a venue Lawson knows well, following his time in Super Formula and his race there for AlphaTauri in place of Daniel Ricciardo in 2023. Additionally, this is also the Red Bull team that promised to give Liam time to adjust only a few short months ago. So what have we learnt there then? Well, that Red Bull lie. Though admittedly, I don't think anyone expected Slowson to be this bad, and anyway, that's about as much of a surprise as finding out Jimmy Savile was a kiddie fiddler. Thinking about this from the other side of things, promoting Tsunoda makes the most sense, and arguably it's what they should have done to begin with. He was faster than Liam on average over their 11 races together as teammates, and has made a flying start to 2025. And that's despite not having a point yet to his name. That's less on him though, and more on VCAR learning their strategy arts from Maranello. There are some rumours flying around that Hadjar could be given the step up, and while I'll admit that I've been surprised at how competitive the Frenchman has been this year, if you're Red Bull and you've just discovered that placing a guy with 11 races experience results in him morphing into a cesspool of shit, oh I know, let's swap him out for somebody who only has 2. So Yuki steps up to the main team then, just in time for his home Grand Prix, opening up a space for Lawson at Racing Bulls where he can be a placeholder until Red Bull's next fetus comes along. Well, turns out not necessarily. Helmut Marko clearly had a very busy weekend in China, and on race day was spotted over in the Alpine hospitality. Given that no one willingly chooses to hang out with the French, the media has quickly come to the same conclusion. What's cooking with Franco Colapinto? This was a guy who, depending on who you believe, had a genuine shot at the Red Bull drive at the end of last season. This after an impressive super sub performance for Williams, though before he grew an interest in F1 car dissection. What we pretty much know for certain is that talks went somewhere last year, and more realistically, this was setting Franco up for what ended up being Kryzak Hadjar's spot at RB. Anyway, now it appears that F1 promotion could well be back on the cards. If Lawson is dropped by Red Bull at any point this year, there's no single chance in hell he returns to that team in the future. If that's the case, why have him just gather dust in the sister team when you could make better use of that seat to evaluate another prospect, just in case Tsunoda also drowns alongside Max Verstappen and the team still can't come to the realization that maybe it could just be a fundamental issue with the car after all. This is where Colapinto would fit into the puzzle, taking the seat vacated by Yuki in a move that might just make Jack Doohan tinkle a little. The only snag here would be the price tag on the Argentinian's head. Williams made Alpine pay through the nose for the rookie during the off-season, and Red Bull would likely have to fork out an even larger fee if they were really that interested. That might just be the saving grace for Lawson here, who, as awful as he's been, showed he can perform in that V-carb car and could maybe do with a swap simply to take him off the suicide watch. In conclusion, as brutal as it would be to end Liam's Red Bull and potentially F1 career after just 2 race weekends, especially given all he's done to get there, that's this team in a nutshell. As I said in my video last week, I wouldn't be wholly surprised if this is what we're looking at come Japan. And at the end of the day, if this is the level of drama we're getting after just 2 Grand Prix into the season, we're in for an interesting 2025, and I'll be covering all that news here on the channel, so be sure to get subscribed for all of that. Since we're on the subject of plugs, I've started a brand new F1 podcast called Talk Shift. A huge thank you to everyone who's gone over there so far, and episode 1 is live on that channel now, so link is down in the description if you want to check that out. A big thank you to all the members and patrons who get this video early, and all links for that are down there too. I'll be back very soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.